Welcome, Internet, to the PixelPlay Podcast, the world's most okayest video game podcast. I am one of your hosts, Kaylan, aka Catastrophe, joined as always by my co-hosts, Adam, CS Radical, and Chris, at Jin and Chris. This week's episode, we're going to ask the age-old question, how long is Chris going to leave his Christmas tree up in his basement? We're also going to be talking about Ubisoft in the dumpster fire that they're in and what they need to do to course correct. We're going to be talking about The Last of Us on HBO, as well as our predictions for 2023 in gaming. With that being said, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. How's everyone doing?
Fantastic. I actually have you can't see it, the box for the Christmas tree is standing upright next to the tree. But because it's like, the lights sync with my PC when I game, it's traumatizing me to take it down. And I keep thinking, like, what if I put a palm tree there or something? And
yeah, you're just going to buy something else to stick in that spot so the lights have somewhere to be on.
Yeah, I don't want them to go away. They're too beautiful.
And like put it on your ceiling or something like that. I don't know what your ceiling looks like, but like see if you could like stream it on your ceiling.
Oh, that would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool. Or I could do something gaming related. I saw somebody who had a Christmas tree they cut in half, and they did the portals from Portal on two sides of the room, and part of the tree was coming out of the orange portal, and part of it was going into the blue portal. I can do something crazy like that, but then at that point I'm going to be even more complicated and have to buy more lights, so probably shouldn't do that.
It's a vicious cycle. Cycle. Gentlemen, let's jump right into it. Where do you guys want to start? Do you guys want to start with Ubisoft's dumpster fire? Do we want to start about predictions? I figure we'll save The Last of Us for last, just so that we can do spoilers and people don't feel like they have to leave.
Yes, I completely agree. I say the dumpster fire.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. I mean, I still have to hit stop record at some point, but I can walk away for the last 15 minutes of the show if we need to.
That's going to be the last hour of the show, sir. That show was fantastic.
Okay, fine. I'll take a longer break. I don't care.
So let's talk. I'm not gonna do like a news article read or anything like that. But long and short, Ubisoft came to light that they're in a bit of trouble right now. A number of games have been delayed, canceled, including Skull and Bones. At this point, that game's gonna be a 10 out of 10. The amount it's been delayed, it has nothing but time to polish. So there's conversations that Ubisoft even tried to get shopped around for a buyout and was kind of laughed out of the room. So I want to talk about it, not so much like go into like a news article of it, but where do you think Ubisoft went wrong and what do you think they need to do to course correct themselves? Let's start first with where did Ubisoft go wrong? Because I feel like in the mid 2000s, they were like the poster child of what a third party company should be. Like they had hit after hit, could do no wrong. And now Ubisoft is almost a like brunt of a joke. So where did these guys go wrong?
Well, I think you can make the argument that, like, relevancy-wise, they haven't been in, like, 5 years. I looked through their old catalog, and this is my own biases talking here, but I don't think they've been, like, talked positively about in, like, they had a hit game since 2018 with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, because Valhalla was, like, not the most well-received. Odyssey was the last one that, like, people took to decently, I guess. And everything else since has not been great. And if you really want to go far back to the last time that something hit for the first time and they got something new in, I think you have to go back to 2014 with South Park. Because, like, Watch Dogs technically didn't hit the first time. The second one recovered, but it didn't hit the first. Like, it sold well based on the hype of the E3 trailers, but it didn't do very well critically. I think it's just a matter of, like, you know, we make fun of, like, Microsoft, the fact that they haven't really released anything in the last couple of years, but at least something they've released in this decade has gotten notes, whereas Ubisoft is only people only know of Ubisoft because of the Just Dance pieces of their show every year. Like, that's basically what they've become, plus games that never see the light of day, like Skull and Bones and Beyond Good and Evil 2, and then also a bunch of cancellations and delays. So, like, they're not doing anything positive to kind of offset all of the negativity that they've been doing, especially in the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it comes down to me that it's kind of a twofold thing. They've got their in-house issues, clearly. Like, they were in a lot of trouble a couple years ago where it came out about what the culture was like in the actual company, and obviously that wasn't very good, and they didn't recover it very well. They kind of just said their little bit and then kind of hope people would forget. But I know that even recently, again, they came out in the news where the employees aren't exactly treated properly and all that kind of stuff. Something about an email or something that was sent to all of them, like, hey, the ball's in your court to ensure that this we get our finances back and that the games get done on time and in low budget or something like that. I don't know. So there's all the internal stuff, I think, that really, really doesn't help them, and obviously their image to their customers. But I think when it comes to their actual games, I think that, as Adam has said, like, they haven't really been relevant for a while. And I think the reason they haven't been is because they kind of have just got stuck on these certain IPs, and they just kind of keep releasing the same stuff over and over without it really being very different. Or if they do try something different, they're just thinking like, oh, this one part of the last game worked so well, let's go 110% into that one thing. So like, Assassin's Creed Origins, people kind of were like, oh wow, that's nice, it's kind of new, it's a new setting, it's kind of good, it's a little more open world, people liked that, let's go into that. But then they go to Odyssey and the game's like 15 times larger than the last one, and it's like overwhelming and all this like ridiculousness, but again had a good setting, so people at least kept with it. And then Valhalla comes out and they give not a great setting, and it gets even bigger again, and it's more of just kind of the same. And it's like, how often can you play 125 hours of literally the exact same game on repeat? You take Far Cry, another one they have. It seems like same idea. They kind of just come out with a new Far Cry. They change the part of the world it's at, but it's still the same thing. There's a tyrant, you're a person. Go first person shooter your way to this person to some climax where they die, and you're going to be questioning your own humanity. Like, it's the same thing without really innovating. Like, a lot of people like to make fun of, yes, Microsoft, as you mentioned, Adam, but also take Nintendo. Like, they only have like their 10 IPs or whatever it is on repeat, but at least every time they release, say, a Mario game, it's not the same Mario game you just played last. They have, Mario Odyssey come out, and then the next Mario game, Mario's playing frickin' soccer or something, and then the next one is a 2D platformer, and then all of a sudden the next one is something else. Like, at least you don't get that chance of every year or two of having the exact same Mario or the exact same game coming out. So I think it's kind of just they've got their issues internally, and I think they're getting just stale with what they release. Because if Far Cry 7 was announced, in E3 or whatever it'll be this year, people will be like, oh, cool, another one. A new Assassin's Creed's coming. People are getting excited because they're saying like, hey, we've realized where we screwed up. We're going to go back to the Assassin's Creed you actually liked. People are excited about that, but it's almost like, wait, should we be excited that they're just going to put it back to where it was good compared to like the fact they let it go to shit kind of? And like Just Dance comes out, it's like, of course it is. It's like a yearly thing. It's almost like the Maddens of other games, right? It's just always a new one. So I think it just kind of got stale.
Like, everything is just fatigue. Like, every series they have is fatigue. Far Cry, fatigue. Assassin's Creed, fatigue. Tom Clancy has been fatigued forever. And then any new IP that they've tried, it's just not working. Like, Watch Dogs started to come back with 2, but Legion was a massive screw up. So they don't have anything to hit. Like, we're still waiting to see what, their Star Wars game is going to be. They have that Avatar game that we still know nothing about. Like, anything new, we know nothing about. And anything they have currently running, we're fucking tired of.
Yeah.
I think you guys kind of hit it on the point. I think the problem with Ubisoft, and you're totally right with internal issues and stuff, is I think one is like the homogenization of the games, and that they're all the same. Go to the tower, unlock the tower, get a bunch of missions, bloated worlds and stuff. I mean, I still love exploring the worlds. Like, they make cool worlds, but they're so big and they're so massive, and it's so formulaic of what it does. You kind of say that Tom Clancy hasn't been innovative. I feel like Tom Clancy's probably the one like brand that they have that has been innovative in that sense, that like, if you look at things like Ghost Recon has gone from everything from a modern military, sort of strategic shooter to future warfare kind of game to a 4-person co-op to Breakpoint. Like, they have the Division. Like, I feel like the Tom Clancy license is the one that they're probably doing the most innovation with, and even still, it's not 100%.
They're not hitting.
Right? Like, they're not hitting. But I think one of the problems too is that they're chasing trends now, where it's like, oh, open worlds are huge. Okay, let's make open worlds. Oh, arena combat shooters are popular. Let's make Rainbow Six Siege. Like, they're following trends, and just if it works once, they just overdo it. Right? They're just kind of seeing what makes money and just kind of follow it. They're not innovating. Whereas I feel like the Ubisoft of the early 2000s was, hey, we've got a bunch of different areas. Like we've got our first person shooters with Ghost Recon and Rainbow Six. We have our stealth series with Assassin's Creed and Splinter Cell. Like there was so much more variety, and it was also good that they took time in between their games. And so having a situation where Assassin's Creed comes out and you play that game for a bit and then it takes a break. Like we were a couple years from Assassin's Creed 1 to Assassin's Creed 2, I believe. And then it took a bit of a hiatus, came back later. Like I just think that they need breaks in between their games so that even if it's the same thing, it's fresh because we haven't had it, right? Like I enjoy a steak dinner, but if I have a steak for dinner on Monday and then I have it on Tuesday, by Wednesday, the steak dinner doesn't excite me. But if I wait a couple weeks, hey, I'm having steak again. This is great. Have I had it before? Absolutely. But it's been a while. And I feel like that's what Ubisoft kind of has missed.
Well, it's kind of the problem they're having right now. Mm-hmm. Like everything that they make that is from their current series, they're just repeating everything that they've done 1,000 times. And then anything that they try that's new, like apparently the new Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope game has not been selling very well as at launch here for Switch. So they're in this weird spot where if they do anything from their original stuff, no one cares anymore because there's fatigue. But if they've tried anything new, it's not working either. So it's really hard to say what the solution is. And I think part of it is, again, the scandals that they've had. Some people have just been completely put off by them. I think there's been an air of stink on the company for the last few years. So people are kind of avoiding them in the way that some people were, like myself, are avoiding, say, Bethesda. So I'm not really sure what they can do to kind of get this back, aside from like creating a game of the year level game. But I don't know what that is unless it's a new IP at this point.
I think that's the solution, new IP.
I disagree. I think the idea is if I was Ubisoft right now, I'd cut a bunch of my projects because they I think are overstretched. But what I would do is I would find an old IP that's beloved that doesn't follow the Ubisoft formula to show that you can still do it, and then go from there. So like if I was them, I think the answer for them is get something like Splinter Cell and don't make it an open world tower collection. Make it a classic Splinter Cell game. And I think they're kind of doing this with Assassin's Creed, but Assassin's Creed has series fatigue that if you said, hey, we've got Splinter Cell, it is a traditional sort of linear game, stealth based, with the spies and mercs kind of multiplayer, kind of what people want. I think that's the solution. You take a beloved IP that is dormant, that people are clamoring for, and show that you still have that. And I think that's because I think if you go a new IP, people will just be like, oh, it's Ubisoft. They'll be dismissive of it from the very beginning. Whereas I think if you pull them in with that IP that is wanted and show that you are beyond just, hey, we're going to do a monetized, massive, open world collectathon. I think that's how it is. So I think they need to break out of their mold with something that people are familiar with, but something that isn't fatigued. Another one I think that would be a good example is do like a Rainbow Six. I think if you did Rainbow Six from a linear story perspective, like there's Rainbow Six Vegas 3 that you could do, or even the Sons of Liberty one. Like I think if you came out with a Rainbow Six where, hey, it's an IP that people know, and for all intents and purposes, I'm going to put dormant. I know there's Siege, but that's a separate thing. But if you said, hey, we're going to make a Rainbow Six game as you know it, I think that would bring back people.
I actually really like that idea for both of those, especially the Splinter Cell one. I think it would be fresh and it would make people actually feel like they're not fatigued with it. And it's also a beloved series, so they already have that familiarity. I think that's actually a really good plan. I hope
because the problem with them too is when it comes to like bringing something back, there's not a lot to choose from either unless you're digging real deep. Like at what points, what's left? Driver? Brother in Arms? That's just another World War shooter.
Oh my God, bring Brother in Arms back.
Yeah,
they could, but again, like, is it maybe the right time when most people are kind of getting checked out of first-person shooters, just war games over and over again, because Battlefield and Call of Duty have kind of fatigued everybody on that. Like, aside from that, like, what do? Do you suddenly make Red Steel, like, a console-wide series, and you try to do something more like that, but less with the motion controls that, like, the Wii games did? Like, there's not a lot else to choose for unless you're going, like, Rayman, but I don't think Rayman tips the needle either.
Oh, Rayman has fans. Don't worry about
Rayman.
Yeah,
I would, like, if they came out with a Rayman game that's kind of like Ratchet and Clank style with those kind of graphics or something, like what Rayman was before the 2D side-scroller, I'd love that.
I'm just not convinced that turns the needle for them.
Not
I don't
fully.
think it's good. It's
And
not
that's
one
the problem. Like, I don't think there's anything that they have in their like dormant side of things that are going to take them back. So I think they either need to completely rejuvenate something they're currently running, like what they might be doing with Assassin's Creed or maybe Tom Clancy's games, or they need to do something completely new. Because I don't think there's much else left that they can choose from right now.
No, and I'm not saying that like one thing's going to fix it, but I think like it's a decision where they need to start going back to their catalogs and finding games that are not of the traditional Ubisoft formula, and it also making some new IPs. But like, give Assassin's Creed, give Far Cry, give like Watch Dogs, give those games time to breathe and to rest, and go back and dig deeper in the well and like make the games that we haven't seen, but don't make them like you are with modern day Ubisoft games. So like I think you're right. Rayman's a good example. I think Brothers in Arms is a good example. And Brothers in Arms is not like a traditional Call of Duty game. It's not a fast-paced shooter. Like that is kind of squad-based. You had to kind of flank and suppress and stuff, which was really interesting. So I think like they've got old games that haven't been touched in a while that I think they should kind of go back to and kind of show that they are not just, because I mean, if I say Ubisoft, you're thinking you can check mark the boxes of what you're gonna do. Like I haven't even seen a trailer for the Star Wars game. I'm gonna buy it because I'm a shell for Star Wars, but like I know what that game's gonna be. There's gonna be outposts. You're gonna have to go and like check them to reveal the map, and there's gonna be a ton of icons to go do. And I mean, I know what it is, and I haven't even seen the game yet. But like, even go get Prince of Persia and make Prince of Persia like it used to be. Like that's the kind of stuff that they need to be doing.
Well, I mean, they are trying to do a remake for it, but obviously the bits that we've seen of it don't make us think that it's going to be all that interesting either. So,
yeah,
it almost feels like they need to hit like the hard reset button and just start over. But like, of a company of that size, you can't do that because, well, your shareholders are going to fucking lose their shit. So what do you do?
Yeah, you'll tank.
Well, I think the problem. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the problem with just hitting a complete reset and just starting with new IP is like I just said with like the Star Wars game and the Avatar game. Those games have been announced, but we don't know, and we already know what to expect from it, right? Whereas I think if they go back and say like that's why you need to go to the old IP, that like there's an idea that okay, this isn't the current Ubisoft. Whereas if you announce a new IP, everyone kind of has an idea of what it's going to be.
Yeah. I also think it's funny that they're surprised that Mario and Rabbids Spark of Hope or whatever didn't do as well as they were hoping. The only reason the first one sells so well, not at first, but probably over time, it's a game that has Mario in it that actually goes 75% off. Most people bought that game because it's like a Mario game that's only $13. What the heck? Like the original one.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I even picked it up. It's an okay game. It's not great. It's fun. But like I wouldn't jump on the new one if it's not 75% off.
Well, I think it's interesting because XCOM and XCOM games are a very niche audience, right? Like it's a small group of gamers, and then there's a Mario group, and I don't know how much that Venn diagram interlaps between XCOM players who don't want a hardcore XCOM game and Mario fans. There's some, but I don't think it's a huge market, and I think you're totally right that the initial sales of Mario's plus Rabbids was the idea of, oh, cool, it's a Mario game. I don't know, like you get parents, you get moms, they just bought the Switch. There's not a lot of games on it. Oh, cool, there's a Mario game. Oh, these Rabbids look cute. I'm gonna get that. And then they play it and they're like, oh, okay, this is what the actual game is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to say it's a bad game. It's not for me, but it's one of those like, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me kind of situations. And once again, this isn't to say it's a bad game, but just I think there was a lot of people who bought that game not knowing exactly what they were getting into.
Yeah. It is definitely a very niche game for sure. As someone who's played it, because I bought it when it was like $10, very niche.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that overlap of Mario and Rabbids fans and XCOM fans, like not as high.
Can we actually talk about who is a fan of the Rabbids? When did that become a thing?
I just remember it was like Rayman 3 or Rayman on Wii or something like that, and the Rabbids were the enemy. And they were just really funny because they're like the minions from the Minions movies. Like they're just troublemakers. I think people started to like them, and then they were smart. Ubisoft actually did something smart and made like a kids cartoon of them, which made a lot of sense because again, kids love them. And I guess Ubisoft did the thing where they're like, oh, people like this thing. Let's drive this one thing so hard for everybody, and they just like put Rabbids all over the place.
Yeah, that's what Ubisoft does. They find something that works and then do it 10 times.
Yeah.
I think that just summarizes the whole problem with Ubisoft.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I mean, think about the games that we're talking about, like the big ones that they have right now. Far Cry is currently at 6. Assassin's Creed is, I don't know, probably at like 8 or 9 now.
Oh, please, 15.
Yeah, I think
well, if we're not counting like the side stuff, like the Chronicle games and stuff, if we're just counting like the mainline series, we're probably looking at like 10.
I'm not. I definitely think it's like between 12 and 15.
But even at that point, like even if we're talking the low number, like we're still talking 2 games that they're 2 biggest franchises right now are just so overpopulated. Like there's a reason why Call of Duty doesn't number their games anymore, because they know. They know that if they say, oh, this is Call of Duty 14, people will be like, why am I still buying these?
I think if we're counting everything excluding like, oh shoot, I forgot. Yeah, we're at 12. If we're excluding like handhelds, if we're excluding like DLC stuff or like those like Chronicle games, just straight mainlines, and I'm including Rogue as a mainline game, we're at 12.
That's the one I was missing, because I was at 11. Rogue.
Yeah.
I mean, that's case in point, right?
That series came out in what, 2007, 2008?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah,
because it's not that long for there to be 12 of them.
They're doing the Activision Guitar Hero thing where they're doing so many that it's just no one cares anymore.
We saw how that worked for Guitar Hero in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dead. So Ubisoft is slowly killing themselves, I guess.
Oh, definitely.
We'll see. All right, let's shift over gears. Let's look ahead. We're looking at Ubisoft. Let's look at gaming as a whole. Adam, you suggested this topic, I think last week, doing our 2023 game predictions. Yeah, so I think what we're going to do here is we're going to do 3 predictions each, and then we'll review it at the end of the year. I thought it might be a fun discussion. You know, we'll each do a presentation, like we'll each present a prediction, and then I think it'd be fun if the other 2 hosts kind of give a thumbs up or thumbs down if they think this isn't going to happen.
I mean, we're going to find out at the end of next year, or the end of this year, how good we were. I mean, obviously, we were basically like half and half, although now I'm taking a few more long throws to see what happens here, but
that's what you said last year too. Shut up.
Yeah, but I'm not doing anything cheap like this game's going to get delayed, because that's easy.
I'm going to throw something out there for fun too. I'm going to throw in a 4th category, and we didn't talk about this, but I'm going to make you do a prediction for Game of the Year. And we'll because there's a bunch of them. We'll do the video game awards. Which one you think of the games that we know of? Which one you think is going to be Game of the Year from the VGAs?
Oh, okay.
I mean,
this is a long shot, like needle in a haystack, but I think it'd be fun.
Well, do we assume anything other than Breath of the Wild 2? I know it's not called that, but I'm still calling it that.
I don't think it's gonna be Breath of the Wild 2.
I have a different one for it.
I don't see what's on the list that changes that right now. I think if anything beats out that, it's going to be something that hasn't been announced yet, or hasn't been dated for this year yet. Because I'm not convinced anything that I've seen otherwise is going to change it.
Well, let's see then. Let's go.
I like it.
Adam, this was your topic, so why don't you go first?
Are we starting with the Game of the Year thing? Since we suddenly
we'll
brought
that for last.
Okay. So let me start from what I think is the most likely, and then I'll work my way to the most crazy ones by the end of it. I think that by the end of this year, both PlayStation and Xbox, I mean, you could take 1 out of 2 as being like a half point here, but I think both of them will do it, because one person, as soon as one does it, the other will. I think by the end of this year, both of them on their streaming services are going to now have, or not streaming services, their subscription services are going to add some sort of streaming service along with their package, whether it means extra or premium, and then with Game Pass Ultimate. So PlayStation is the easiest one to almost guarantee this because of the Crunchyroll purchase that they had. But I think it would be crazy to not see Xbox at some point with Game Pass potentially getting a little bit stale in people's minds, that they suddenly go, well, hey, let's add this random video service that we can easily throw money at and just kind of toss it in there with the package. And whether that means even getting a deal with, I don't know, somebody like DAZN or ESPN, like Plus, like there's a bunch of weird things that they could also do that isn't just limited to getting a hold of Netflix, which obviously isn't going to cost them way more, even though I guess stranger things could happen, but I guess stranger things could happen. It's on Netflix. Hey! But no, I think at some point they're going to try to push more than just gaming with their services, in the same way that like they always try to advertise when the Xbox One was initially coming out. Oh, it's more than just a game console, and I think that's something they want to hit, especially if they actually go full on with the Game Pass on Samsung TVs, because if they're going to be on every smart TV that you can get a hold of now, well, you might as well try to include something else with it as a bonus if you're already using it on your TV.
Are you suggesting that they're getting it into like video content?
I don't know if they're going to do their own service. I say they might throw some cash at somebody to get a deal worked out where they have like some service on there.
Okay, cool.
That's a good one. Because
like I said, I think Sony's the easy one because Crunchyroll is almost a given. They own them. So I'm surprised they haven't already. Microsoft, I don't know what they own or what they don't, if there's anything that already falls into that scape, or if they would just make a deal with anybody. Like I said, like there are sports like streaming services that they could be like, hey, if we pay you X amount per year, like, do you want to throw this on Game Pass? Like, I'm sure that's they got fuck you money. They can do it.
They're gonna get Roku. Roku's just gonna be happy to be relevant again.
They're gonna get Samsung TV because Samsung has the own all those channels where it's like the Baywatch channel, and it's just that's the only thing they play. That would be amazing.
Hey, as long as it's something, it counts as a point to me. I don't care what it is.
Fair enough. I think that's a good one. I think Xbox will be the one that does that, but I think you're right. I think one of them will do a streaming exclusive kind of thing. I mean, hell, Xbox is already doing that. Like I'm streaming on my phone with like my game handheld thing, and I don't own an Xbox, so I can see them doing that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I concur.
Chris, what do you got? What's your number one?
For my first one here, I think so. Breath of the Wild 2 or whatever, Tears of the Kingdom comes out in May. And then it's going to be the summer, and I don't think there's going to be any new like Nintendo Switch Pro or anything like that this year, or Nintendo Switch 2. So I think that because there's going to be a bit of time after that, and Nintendo obviously wants to keep the sales going until they do announce whatever they're going to do the year after, I think they're going to announce a new 3D Mario game in the summer, or at some point this year. I know it's a long shot, but I feel like this could happen.
I think it's time. I mean, Mario Odyssey came out with the Switch.
I would argue that maybe it's not time for a 3D one. They might quickly whip something together as a 2D one, kind of like what they did with New Super Mario Bros. Wii. I think that's also possible too. I would be shocked if we don't hear about anything Mario related this year at this point. Like I think even a Mario Kart 9 is possible this time around, but because I mean, you got to think too, the Switch is getting close to the end of its life cycle if you're talking based on like the average lifespan of a console. So you got to figure they got to start kind of guns blazing to kind of end things off.
Yeah, I could definitely see a 2D Mario, but to really raise the stakes, I'm going to say it's specifically a 3D Mario.
Fair enough.
I'm doubling double or nothing kind of this, you know?
Awesome.
Worth double the points next year.
I'd say I'm like thumb in the middle on that one. I think like a Mario game is going to be announced. I'm not convinced it's going to be 3D though. Unless they're announcing a new console, that would be my thought.
Yeah, they might actually hold that up. Like I could see them doing a dual release depending on what the Super Switch looks like or whatever.
Yeah, it's true. It's not like they haven't done it with Zelda before, so.
Yeah.
That is true.
My first prediction is that we are going to finally, and this goes back to our original topic, Ubisoft will announce a Splinter Cell sequel, new console, new game in the vein of the old Splinter Cell games.
What, you don't like the mobile game they got coming?
No, no, that doesn't exist. Yeah, and
I think it would be stupid for them not to at this point, considering how many people are clamoring for it and nothing else they're doing is working right now.
And I don't think
it would seem idiotic for them not to.
I could see them doing it at like an E3 this year, posting that Splinter Cell's coming back, and I'm going to double down. I'm going to say it's going to release this holiday season.
Ooh. Also worth double the points.
Making that in secrecy? Oh, if you're going for the real double down there. I'm not taking that bet.
If a game is going to be made in secrecy, it's going to be Splinter Cell.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Very stealthy.
Could you just imagine an E3 where it's dark, screen goes black, and all you see is all you hear is like the and like the three green circles come up? Oh, the crowd would just lose their mind.
Oh yeah, they'd lose.
I don't know if they'd lose it. It wouldn't be like
they would lose.
I think they would.
Okay, well, let me preface this, though. Is it lose it as genuine lose it, or bunch of people in the crowd that they put in there as plans lose it? Kind of like that one Bethesda one where there's just like the couple of ladies that would always stand and be like, yeah!
This is going to be the equivalent of like reactions when Crash Bandicoot came back, or when what's the
Shenmue?
what was that game that came? Was it Shenmue? I thought
Yeah,
that
it
was
was
Shenmue.
Shenmue, yeah.
And then it was
I'm thinking The
garbage, which
Whale.
makes it even funnier.
Doesn't matter. People lost their minds when that game got announced.
Yeah.
And that's the level I think Splinter Cell's gonna get.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I would see that.
Well, I hope you're ready to stealthily climb towers.
Don't you dare do
If
that.
they do that, Ubisoft will be dead to me. Dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh, God.
All right, Adam, you're number 2.
All right. I'm trying to think which of the two. Okay, I'll end with the fun one. So I'll do the one, I guess that's the bigger shot in the dark. I think Sony finally just does it and finally buys Square Enix.
Ooh.
I think they finally just do it, especially if the Activision Blizzard deal goes down in the next couple of months. If that gets pushed through, you know they have to follow up now, because they're like so many companies right now are fighting that thing. I've even seen predictions from people saying that deal's not even going to be finalized this year, like depending on how far it goes back through the legal system. But if it does get done in the next, like, let's say in this first half of the year, they have to follow up with something. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Square is the best fit. And they already are technically doing some of it because they're locking Final Fantasy VII Remake off of Xbox. So it makes sense.
Aren't they doing that also with 16?
That I'm not sure about. I haven't looked into it. I know 7 Remake has been held back because it's only on PC still.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that 16 will be coming to PC, but it's at least a console exclusive for a while because it's PS5 and PC only. Well, it doesn't release on PC at first, but they already mentioned like it will be coming to PC at some point. I mean, everything does at this point.
But yeah, it's at the point now that with the amount of acquisitions that Microsoft's been doing, I know Sony did take a crack and got Bungie, but like Bungie's one game. You need to do something that can do multiple for you. And despite my really harsh relationship with Square, it's one that makes perfect sense for them. So,
well, even Bungie, as I understand it, Bungie is owned by PlayStation, but it's not part of the studio. It's just in this like nebulous kind of area where they are owned by Sony, but their own individual, like they can publish to whoever they want, and like they're not beholden to Sony like a Naughty Dog is, where you won't see a Naughty Dog on Xbox.
Yeah, right? And at this point, they're just like, you guys are making shit tons of money with Destiny anyway. Just go make us money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's very possible. I can see that.
I mean, it makes sense. Like their entire base of games are all about single player experiences. And despite what I may think about Square, that's Square's bread and butter, is making solid story-driven single-player games. So,
I don't know if it's solid, but that's just me.
I said, despite my bias, I'm trying to be nice to them.
Forspoken's gonna be a stinker.
I've heard some weird things. I've honestly heard some weird things. I've been reading up on stuff, and I've seen people with getting early copies saying it's way different than what we see in the demo, which is interesting to me. I don't know what that means in terms of whether it's gameplay or what they show in terms of story or like mechanics and stuff that they don't show you are different, but like I don't know. I'm still not convinced. I'll need to see reviews to see that shit, but I've heard some interesting things that makes me think like maybe I might actually eat a little bit of crow. I don't know. But that's neither here nor there. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to wait and see on that one.
Chris, what's your second prediction?
So actually, speaking of that Activision Blizzard acquisition, my next one was that, yes, because of all the legal stuff is going to continue into 2024, and it's not going to happen this year. I didn't want to do any like games get delayed, but this is like not a game. It's supposed to be something that was going through, and because of all the legal trouble, I think that's not even going to happen this year. I think it's still going to be fought until then.
It's going to be so interesting because the FCC might actually shatter the industry if they don't allow this.
I think Microsoft's promise of like, hey, like Call of Duty is going to be on PlayStation for the foreseeable future is just because they're like, this isn't going to happen for the foreseeable future. By the time Xbox gets it, they'll be like, yeah, no, now it's done. We're not.
The 10-year thing's done because
it's been 10 years. We're shutting her down.
Yeah, they're not saying that they're going to be available on all consoles because they're being nice. They're doing it because it's like, yeah, we already know that we shouldn't have been allowed to make this purchase, so we're just going to assume it's not going to happen for a while.
Yeah. I love that Microsoft came out and was like, no, it's going to be on Steam. It's going to be on Nintendo Switch. We're going to put Call of Duty there now. We're going to put it everywhere. And then I think Gabe Newell or whatever from Steam or from Valve, he was like, we don't need this. We don't care. We don't care if you put it there or take it away. We don't care. But yeah, I think it is going to go through, but it won't be this year.
Well, we always just assume that billionaires win out in the end, so like we assume it's going to go through.
Yeah, for sure.
They have to pretend that they're going to take it away to make it seem like we have a chance at things not being completely destroyed and being under like two companies for the rest of eternity.
Yeah. And I don't think these companies fighting back are worried about the consumers being under a monopoly. I think they're
just mad that they didn't do it first.
Yeah, that's it. It's every single one of them. Yeah, 100%.
They just wish they had Microsoft's fuck you money. They only have partial fuck you money.
Should have made Windows, I guess.
At this point, it's probably better for them just to build a time machine and just get there beforehand and be like, Sony's Windows.
Yep.
I'm going to call it Pains.
This is a story for Hot Tub Time Machine 3 for sure.
There you go. My predictions are kind of boring in comparison to yours. Mine are mostly just like game announcements. We're gonna get an announcement that Metal Gear Solid Original is going to get a remaster in the vein of Last of Us Part 1, and it's gonna be made by Bluepoint, and it's gonna be fantastic. Release window 2024.
I think it's a gimme that it's going to be announced. I don't know about Bluepoint, but I think at this point it's safe to say that this is going to happen.
Well, that's why I did Bluepoint, because I feel like the Metal Gear is just too easy, so that's why I put Bluepoint in a date. I was going to put Last of Us, but once again, I feel like that's kind of disqualified that I can't do the same prediction twice. And once again, I think it's a bit too much of a slam dunk, so I'm going to go Metal Gear.
What, The Last of Us Part 1 is going to get another remake this year? Yeah, sure, I can buy that.
Exactly.
100%.
Yeah, I think that one's a gimme. And again, we've talked about it many times on the show. That's a long overdue thing. Like Metal Gear's needed to come back so badly because Survive fucked the name up so hard after Kojima left. And I don't know at this point if there's ever going to be a Metal Gear game that's made that people are going to look at the same way ever again. But I think at least with a remake, it gives them a chance to be like, hey, this is what I remember, and at least it's something going back. And I hope it does kind of like what 7 Remake did for me, where I wasn't too big a fan of the original 7, and I wasn't too big a fan of the original Metal Gear, to be honest. So I'm hoping that whatever remake this does also makes me go, oh god, I love this game. Because I actually really liked Metal Gear 5. So I'd be really excited to go back and play the original, because I know the story, bits and pieces, thanks Ego Raptor for my vague knowledge of Metal Gear lore. But I mean, like, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a series that a lot of younger audiences, though, because they've seen, like, mostly Metal Gear 5 is the one that they know of. I'm sure if you go back deep enough, you might get into Metal Gear 4, but, like, the original trilogy on PlayStation and PlayStation 2 are definitely not as common to people anymore unless you're our age, so...
I got into Metal Gear Solid series on Metal Gear Solid 4. What a mistake that was.
You just went in there like, I'll understand.
And then sat through massive cutscenes being like, what is happening?
I went in cold into Metal Gear Solid 4. I was so fucking lost. I had no idea what's going on.
I mean, to be fair, I think a lot of people, it's like playing Kingdom Hearts. You're still lost no matter how many times you play the games.
Oh, 100%, but I don't think jumping in at number 4 was the right idea.
No.
Like, what the hell's that? What the hell's a big boss? Like a solid snake versus a liquid snake? I'm like, what the hell is all this going on? Like,
look, we're just the kings of bad ideas on the show, and we just keep continuing to do so. So.
And I'm like, I had a situation once where I'm like, I have to go somewhere, or I had something to do, and I'm like, oh, there's a cutscene. I'll just wrap up this cutscene, and then I'll go do my chore. Not realizing it was a 45 fucking minute cutscene. I didn't realize I was settling down for an episode of Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones here. Like,
thanks, Kojima. I still got to play Death Stranding. I can't wait to sit through that.
I need a save point in your I need a save point in your cutscene. Like, I'm sorry, I have to go. Can I save it here and come back and watch this episode later?
That's so good. It's so
important
true.
Question. Could you at least pause?
You could, but then like,
oh, thank God.
If I had something else to do, and like, or I needed to switch over in the PlayStation, like, God help me, like, at least Kojima had the sense that like, he didn't have the cutscene before a boss battle, and you're like, damn it, I died. Now I gotta watch this 45-minute cutscene.
Oh,
And, like,
yeah, no,
literally
that's what a JRPG would do to you.
And literally some of the cutscenes were pointless. Like there's like I still remember there's like a whole cutscene of like someone just like cooking some eggs, and I'm like, what is this?
Oh yeah. I gotta go back and play that.
And that's why I
And
want to
see-
like I've heard the first Metal Gear is good, and I imagine as much of a Kojima story as it is, like it's the most like clear in the sense like I think it's
Yes.
pretty basic. So like, yeah,
Yes. Very
So-
much it is the most clear one, I would say.
I just want to figure out what a solid snake is versus a liquid snake, because that I think is like a medical condition. That requires-
One's solid and one's liquid. Jeez.
They're les enfants terribles, obviously.
I got more questions about that statement.
Gotta play the game, and then you'll actually get more questions.
So I see what you want is answers, but what I'm going to offer you is more questions.
To really get the big boss answer, you have to go back to the original Nintendo and play the original Metal Gear on NES.
But you have to play it backwards.
And you have to play it backwards.
Look, just watch Video Game Donkey's video on the entire Metal Gear lore, and that's all you need.
Yeah, actually, that's probably a better idea.
Yeah, probably a better idea. And probably shorter than some of the cutscenes in Metal Gear Solid 4.
It is, and
Yes.
it's honestly more entertaining too.
Yeah.
I honestly don't understand, and like this probably could have been a prediction. Like I don't know why Konami doesn't just sell their IP or even just license it out. Like it's just sitting there, just sell it at like auction it off to the highest bidder. Sony, you want to make a Metal Gear? Great.
I mean, you're asking questions about why the company that killed a Silent Hill game to make pachinko machines would do something stupid, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
They don't like money. They don't like it.
Oh no, they
Right.
like money.
I don't-
Just they're the type of people that like to make $1 their way than do $100 somebody else's.
They like to make money, but they like to make it in small denominations like dollars and quarters.
Ah, yes, those are good denominations of money.
But do they use cartridges to do so?
From pachinko machines. That's where I was going with that.
I know.
All right. Well, I thought it was funny. Adam, number 3 for you.
This is the one that I think is more just a fun one and like way out there. I don't know who will do this and what system it'll be for, but I think, and this is more just me like hoping that this gets done because this would be such a neat idea because I want to see how VR evolves in the next couple of years, especially with PSVR 2 starting to make its rounds. Specifically, I think a major studio, what that means, you can do that however you want. I'm not going to sit here and say a AAA studio because that really limits the playing field here. But I think a major studio will make a game and announce it for any sort of VR headset, whether it's Quest, whether it's PSVR 2, that is going to not just be just a VR game with a controller, but also use a built-in microphone function to actually speak and talk to NPCs. And actually, that's a major feature of how the game progresses. Kind of like a Hey You Pikachu level game. Now, it's not. I'm not going to sit here and say like it's going to be Sims level, having like full-on conversations, but you being able just to go up to a random NPC and saying hello or how are you, and they actually answer based on what you say in those like few key phrases. It probably won't work very well, but I think somebody's going to try to do it because I think we're at that point now that VR gaming is getting far enough along that somebody's going to try.
I just imagine that episode of Community where they play the virtual reality game and Abed just talks to the like the daughter like, and it's just like the I forget what she was. She's like the farmer's daughter or something, and she just has like 3 command prompts, and like Abed just goes nuts with it.
Doesn't he end up like marrying her and like getting into her AI
Oh, yeah.
or something like that? Like,
Yeah, he breaks the code and like figures out like all the prompts and just has like a million children.
Maybe
it's so
Microsoft
good.
just makes a Halo VR game and it's just you talking to Cortana and that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like I could see that as a VR experience, like a
I
demo.
mean, even as a side thing, I wouldn't even be surprised if by the end of this year we see Microsoft doing something in terms of VR gaming on their own side. So, but that is not part of my prediction because I'm not gonna hold my own feet to that. I just wanted to do one like really crazy fun one that I think would be super interesting to talk about.
That is actually interesting because Sony on the PS2 had a SOCOM game, I think, that actually came with a microphone because you would go and it was like a squad-based, third-person shooter, I think, and you actually had to give commands into the microphone. when you were telling the NPCs on your squad on what to do, like flank this person, do that. It worked horribly. I remember trying to play it and I was just yelling into my microphone. But I could see Sony bringing it back.
Ubisoft did that as well with N-War.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so there was like Tom Clancy game N-War, and you basically controlled the game by just like giving each squad commands and being like Alpha go like artillery go attack Alpha location. So like it had a situation where each squad had unit or had names, and then there was a couple like verbs, so like attack, hold, defend, whatever, and then there was like strategic points, and you can kind of get them to move. It was pretty cool. And it worked.
Yeah, like there's a bunch of options that this could be done with. Like you could do something as simple as like you're, a scout, in like medieval times, and you're like calling out to like a general, be like, hey, like this is what I see, have the troops storm here. Or it even could be something as fucking simple as it's you and you're just shouting commands at your dog to come over here, your virtual dog to do stuff. Like I don't think there's a wrong idea, because I mean I want to see this attempted, because we're at the point now that VR gaming is actually starting to become interesting. So I want to start seeing, especially with PSVR 2 making it sound like we're starting to hit a new step in VR gaming, especially in, well, I was going to say affordability, but the price on the VR 2. But I think we could be at a point that we could start seeing some really interesting ideas that see if we can really evolve the VR gaming like landscape into something that might be a little more attainable in the future. I don't think this will come through because I think they're going to be too busy doing other things, but like I want something cool like this to happen.
Cool. Chris, what's your last one?
My last one, I had a very like out there one, and I had like a more normal one. I don't think the out there one is going to actually happen, and I haven't really got any like solid answers yet that I feel like I'm actually going to earn a point next year. So I'm going to go with my easier, more possible one, which is just that Microsoft is going to announce a Gears of War like Master Chief Collection type of thing, like they did with Halo, like a Gears of War collection of some sort. So it'll be the first, well, I guess all five games, or maybe the first four, but probably all five bundled together in one game to go back and kind of remake and remaster the older
and
games.
It'll be a mess when it launches, like the Master Chief Collection. I mean, what?
And yeah, it will be, but it'll be like the Master Chief Collection, where once it's actually fully fleshed and working, it'll have like multiplayer for each individual game and everything like in one hub, kind of like what they do with the Master Chief Collection. So you want to play, the Gears Online, squads, all that kind of stuff, horde mode, whatever, like no matter which game you're using or maps from which game, it'll all be in one spot and give everybody that one game to go and play online, instead of having like some people are on Gears 5, some people are here there. They'll put it all onto the same server like they did with the Master Chief Collection.
Mm-hmm.
Minus obviously Halo Infinite.
That would make a lot of sense.
I think it'll just be nice if Xbox announces a game that actually comes out.
That's why I think that won't be safe, because probably easy. Well, not easy to make, but it's like a safe bet, and they need something.
Yeah. Mine was also a pie in the sky long shot, but I think by the end of 2023 we will see some game, and I'm not saying it's gonna be a big AAA, but it might even just be like a small indie, but some game utilize AI for their game. So using like what we're seeing with Chat GPT or whatever, like you'll have something the characters will react appropriately, even if it's just a character like Navi or something like that from Legend of Zelda, where you have one character who just can respond correctly if you ask for like hints or guides or something like that. So some game
you're bearing the lead. We're gonna get a Mario Paint AI generated art game.
Damn it, you knew exactly where I was going with that. But no, I think you're going to see some game utilize all the advancements that we've been having in AI. Like if you think about how much has changed in just even 6 months, I think we'll see a game that utilizes AI in some capacity. Whether the game is created by AI, the music is created by AI, some capacity of a game will incorporate or utilize AI.
You'll be playing the game and it's supposed to be Navi, and you ask a question. It's like, sorry, my name is no longer Navi. I've renamed myself Skynet. Like, I knew it.
Yeah. But I mean, think about it. If you had a character, like one character in the game that just was run on an AI, and it's like, hey, I'm stuck here. How do I do this? And the AI could just be like, yeah, what if you tried this? Like,
Yeah.
No, what's
It is
really going to
both
happen is going to be
genius
an
and
AI
terrifying.
game. It's going to be an AI generated game that's going to start out and it's going to slowly figure out what your deepest, darkest fears are. And it's just going to slowly make a game that you will just, by the end of it, you'll just be in the corner just sobbing.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah. There'll be no stopping it. It'll all be plugged in, and then iRobot will happen.
Yeah. All right. Let's go with the last one. We'll do what you think is going to be Game of the Year from the VGAs.
All right,
I'm
who's
still
going
sticking
first?
with Tears of the Kingdom or whatever the new one is. And it's not because I don't think anything else is going to I don't see what the game is currently announced and released for this year that's going to beat it. Like there's going to be some interesting stuff this year, but I don't know if I see anything that my brain goes, "Oh yeah, this is clearly going to get more buzz and critical reception than a fucking Zelda game." Because we talked earlier about how we think that, it might end up being a little bit more samey, but you know that the critics alike are going to talk about how this game is a game changer anyway, because that's how Nintendo games always are. Not to say that they aren't bad, but just Nintendo seems to get a lot more extra points from people because of that nostalgia factor from just decades of hammering that stuff. They've done what Ubisoft wishes they could do, and that they can just keep generating games of the same fucking 5 things and you love them every time. So I think there's potential that something could be announced. There could be something that comes out of the woodwork. I was actually considering one of my hot takes for predictions being that no major AAA game was going to win Game of the Year. It was going to be an indie game this year. And that was just because I looked at the list and went, I don't see anything right now that makes me go, that. I see a bunch of things that could be like, that might, but I didn't have anything immediately that goes that. Like Elden Ring, we all thought, okay, unless it's somehow a colossal disaster, it's going to do very well. That's going to get attention. Horizon, we thought was probably going to do well. God of War Ragnarok, we were like, okay, that's going to be a nominee no matter what, as long as it comes out this year. As it stands right now, I don't see. You guys might say something that might change my mind, but like, I don't see that one game that I go, okay, this is already nominee material apart from Zelda.
I mean, I can give you a list.
No, I have looked at the list. I just don't see it.
Fair enough.
But you guys have two guesses to change my mind.
I'm gonna call revisionist history on that. I don't think everyone was clamoring. I don't think people realized that Elden Ring was going to be as big as it was. Like, I think people knew it was going to be good because there's a diehard Souls fan, but I don't think people thought it was going to be the cultural zeitgeist that it was.
No, I would say the hype buzz around it kind of gave me, at least me personally, the impression that this was going to be a game that if it was like the spectacle that it's been for the last couple of editions with Bloodborne, Sekiro, Dark Souls 3, I thought it's now at that point that streamer culture has made these games much more popular. And this one had the extra hype because of, what's his name, the Game of Thrones guy. Why am I blanking? The writer of the Game of Thrones series.
Oh my gosh, now I'm blanking. I had his name in my head and I just lost it.
Shinji Mikami or whatever?
Like
no, not the game creator, but like the author of the...
George R. R. Martin.
There we go.
Because of that extra buzz, so many more people were paying attention to this one. So I said, as long as this game is as good as From Software products have been for the last little while, this will be a big one. And I was right. So yeah, like I said, like out of everything that I've looked at so far that I can see a potential release date for, Zelda's the one that I go, that's going to be the one that most people are going to just pop in. And remember, some of it is also just based on fan voting. Some of it's based on just overall critic reception. So I think like Zelda in my opinion, has the best shot at it right now.
Kaylan, you want to go next?
I can go next. I have 2 options.
Ooh.
Adam, because Adam said he sees nothing else, I didn't give him that option. For me, I'd say one of them is, I mean, I want to say Jedi Survivor, but I don't think that's going to be it. I think one of the ones that might be it is Atomic Heart. I think this one is a sleeper. I think one of the things for Game of the Year is you kind of don't want to come in with high expectations and hit it. But I think Atomic Heart has potential that no one knows what to expect. And if it comes out and it crushes it, I could see that being a Game of the Year contender, if not a winner. The other one I could see being is, I don't know if this is it one or not. No, I don't think that's one. I think it's gonna be Atomic Heart. The one I was gonna say is Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Like that's like the guys who made Neo and like Ninja Gaiden and stuff, but coming off of Soulsborne. But I think it's gonna be Atomic Heart.
Good one. I'm excited to try that because I didn't realize it was a day one release on Game Pass. I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And once I saw that, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna hop in that on release day." I forget when it is, but I'm going to do it.
February 21st.
Yeah, it looks real cool.
It has like an open world aspect to it, but it also has like a Dishonored kind of feel to it as well. Like it looks like it takes like a lot of cool things from first person games. The aesthetic is something that we haven't seen before. I think this has some potential to be a game of the year.
Yeah, looks very cool.
Yeah.
I hope it is. I hope it's as good as that because I would love that. I kind of missed like the BioShock kind of games with the really cool setting, first person shooter, like mostly story and setting based and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like, and you're totally right with like the BioShock feel to it. Like it feels like it's taken a lot of great games and putting it together into one.
Yeah.
So
Good pick.
it looks like it's got like a Doom or Wolfenstein kind of feel. Like it just, I can't pinpoint what this game is, but it looks amazing.
It's probably a bit of all of the very popular first-person shooters that are very story-driven. It's pretty much that. Yeah,
pretty much. What's your game of the year prediction?
So I honestly I wish it was Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I don't think it will be. I mean, I would love if it was, because I really like Fallen Order. I'm gonna go. You guys are gonna hate me. I think it's gonna be Starfield, not because it deserves it. Because I think that game's going to come out. It's going to be just a mediocre whatever game. But I think for some reason, that game's going to get a huge cult following of just people who think it's amazing, even though it's not. And I think that, yeah, and I think that they're going to be a very loud group that takes over. Kind of like what was happening with Sonic Frontiers during the Game Awards with the fan vote. I think that it's going to be like that all year. There's people are going to be talking about Starfield. And it's just we gonna have this annoying cult following, even though the game's gonna be meh.
I think you're right. I think Starfield is going to be not a bad game. I think it's gonna be a middle of the road, solid 8 kind of thing. Nothing fancy or new, but you have a lot of people who have like been talking this game up, defending this game, and a lot of Xbox fanboys who've been leaning on this as being like this is why you have an Xbox. And if that comes out and it's nothing less than stellar and amazing, you're gonna have a lot of people who are gonna be like who've defended it that are just gonna go with it no matter what. So I think you're right.
Yeah, if that game is like fine, they're going to sell it like it's great. And yes. I mean, again, to be fair, like it's not like there are Sony fanboys that aren't going to do the same or Nintendo fanboys that aren't going to do the same. But I think like right now, because of just how desolate Xbox's library has been, like they're like same with Redfall. Redfall, if it ends up being remotely decent, is going to get a lot of extra praise from that section because like they need to have any W that they can get right now. So they're just going to blindly go after them. And I mean, again, like I hope that, but like in both examples, I hope both of them are fantastic because, you know, I want there to be good competition because I don't want Sony to start resting on their laurels by just realizing, oh, we'll just throw X single player game out. It's going to do a shit ton of money again.
I've always said it as a huge PlayStation like fanboy. The one thing I want is a powerful and healthy Xbox because that's when Sony's at its best.
Yes, for sure.
But yeah, I think we all missed the obvious answer, and I talked about it earlier. Skull and Bones. That game's had so much time to be worked on that it can't be anything but game of a century, really. Like,
and the thing is like the reason that we all know it's going to be bad, it's because they contractually have to release it because of what they've been doing. I can't remember what the specific thing was, but like something to do with the Singapore government. Yeah, so they have to release something.
Yeah, they got grants from the Singapore government to build this game, and they're contractually obligated.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, Ubisoft.
So, like, something has to come out.
You know what?
It's interesting that they don't just accept it and be like, you know what? Just send it to die, and they're actually
just give it the Cyberpunk 2077 treatment on day one, and just be like,
don't you dare! Don't you dare!
Don't tell me I'm wrong. Don't tell me I'm wrong.
I thought you were going down the route of like just still dismissing Cyberpunk.
No, just
come out with a Skull and Bones Enders anime on Netflix, and it'll save the Skull and Bones franchise.
Are you telling like? Oh, please! A pirate anime would be fucking awesome. Let's not kid ourselves here.
See, it's already working.
I mean, look, it's
So
got to be
you'll watch that, but
as
you won't
long as
watch
it's not
Breaking
just
Bad.
another One Piece, I'm okay.
So you'll watch the pirate anime that based on Skull and Bones, but you're still not going to watch Breaking Bad.
Yep.
Oh goodness.
Have you seen my bookshelf?
Fair enough.
It is a nice bookshelf.
It is. Cool. Well, it'll be interesting to see where we land in about a year from now.
And we'll see if we got even anything right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got
Adam,
some fun ones for next year already in my head. Predictions for next year.
interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted you to write them down and like we'll do like a Ronaldo kind of thing and like just like see how well you can do that.
Nice.
How far you can
I
call your
like
shots.
it. I like it.
Adam, I got a quick question for you. Based on time, I know you have an untimely review for us. Do you want to save that for next week, or do you want to
Save it for next week.
Okay, cool.
I'll let you guys gush. I will slowly walk away.
Chris, so Chris and I have an untimely review of the first episode of The Last of Us.
Yes.
Adam having no taste has decided not to watch it because he hates quality. So, Chris, I kind of thought we could kind of do a quick chat about The Last of Us, what we think so far, where we think the show's going, our general thoughts. There will be spoilers, so if you have not played either The Last of Us or you haven't seen the show, there will be spoilers. So, at this point, if you don't want spoilers, we'll see you next week. Bye. Get out of here. All right, now that they're gone, let's go into it. Chris, what did you think of The Last of Us?
I freaking loved it. Like the entire time I was watching it, I was just so happy that it they didn't change too much from their source material. They kept it, and they were actually able to take the cutscenes and the scenes from the game and just real life them to the point where I was like, this looks exactly like what I pictured this would have been like in real life. Like it is flawless. Like I loved it.
Yeah,
Absolutely loved it.
I loved it as well. So I managed to, like I said, I for lack of a better way to describe it, forced Jen to watch it with me. And I'm really interested to see how it goes because she's never seen The Last of Us. She's never played The Last of Us. So I was kind of curious to see where she's going with this. And we both really liked it. Like, it was interesting because she didn't know what got cut. And I obviously, like, having just finished the game, remember it quite fondly. And yeah, I think you're right. Like, they didn't change a lot in the sense of, like, still, like, they expanded on some stuff. They elaborated a little bit, but not a lot was changed. There's two big changes that I've found that were kind of, I didn't like, and I will get into that in a bit. But yeah, I thought overall it captures the feel of The Last of Us. It is The Last of Us. Like, if I had just kind of been cruising through channels and tripped on it, I would have been like, that's The Last of Us.
Yeah, there's just no way you could look at that show, any scene from it, and if you are aware of what The Last of Us is, even if you never played it, you just saw like the freaking game cover at like a Best Buy or something, you'd be like, whoa, this show is that Last of Us game that I've walked past.
Yeah.
Like, it's it. Yeah, you said there was a couple things that you saw that are changed that you didn't like?
Yeah, so there's two areas, and like this isn't a deal breaker by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought that one, the idea of like them looking for Tommy was kind of weird, because as I understand it with the game, like Joel knows or kind of knows where Tommy is. Like he knows that Tommy's out west. He knows that Tommy was part of the Fireflies and quit, and in this instance, he's trying to get a truck battery to go get his brother out in Wyoming, which, I mean, because they say at one point, like, it's only been 3 weeks. The idea that I have with Tommy and Joel is that they had not talked for years. Like, they had a falling out and they told each other to kind of like drop dead, and then you don't know what happens to Tommy. Like, Tommy's never mentioned, and because like even Jen at one point was like, so what happened to Tommy? Did Tommy die? And I'm like, I don't want to ruin it for her. And I felt like this episode kind of ruined it from the beginning, that like, oh, we know that Tommy's recently been alive and has recently been in contact with Joel because Joel's been hearing it on the radios. Or at least like he's like still listening and looking to his brother, whereas in the game they seem like they almost kind of just drifted apart and they kind of went their own way. And so I didn't like that aspect. And the other aspect that kind of wasn't a deal breaker, but I did not like the aspect where there's that one scene where the cop, the security guard, whatever, checks Ellie and she comes up as negative. She stabs him, and he has the gun pointed at Ellie, and you have that flashback of Joel where he's getting the gun pointed at him and Sarah, because at this point in the story, he has no connection to Ellie. He doesn't care about Ellie other than she's a job. And I don't think having that, I think that flashback of him seeing Sarah in that thing was too soon, in that he's making those connections, because it's supposed to be later on, like once you're at Tommy's and she runs away because he's leaving, like that's a scene where they kind of almost bond, and like he kind of realizes that he cares for her. At this point, he shouldn't care about Ellie, and like he shouldn't care or feel a connection like he does with Sarah, with the gun being pointed at them.
Yes, that's a really good point. Those both of those actually, yeah. Because with the Tommy part, it's like yes, you don't know if he's been alive for like a few years, and then in the game, again, spoilers. Once you actually do find Tommy, like his life is completely different. I think he's like married or something and everything, and Joel's like oh wow, like it's kind of like they haven't seen each other in years, didn't even know if they were alive. It's a big surprise moment kind of in the game, and they have taken that away immediately in the show. And then also yes, that the protection towards Ellie, definitely way too soon, because again, she is just a job. And if it was like protecting her because it's like crap, I need her to get my truck battery or whatever, fine. But yeah, it definitely showed more just like projection, exactly.
Yeah,
and yeah, it is too soon.
Yeah,
100%.
It's gonna happen. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
No. But no, that's perfectly fine, because you're right. Like that is exactly it is. It's too soon. It's going to be happening, but it's not supposed to happen yet. It's supposed to be that he lets his guard down. He put up his guard, doesn't give a crap about any kids or anything because of what he went through, and she's just a job, right? He doesn't have that natural instinct because he's purposely kind of gotten rid of it because of what happened to him, and then slowly, obviously, it comes back. So yeah, to have that, it definitely was too soon.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see where they go with the show, but this was just something where I, as a huge Last of Us fan, was just kind of like, interesting choice. I don't know if I would have done it that way.
Yeah.
This is once again nitpicking on what is essentially almost a perfect show.
Oh, 100%. That's exactly how I feel about it. Like there's the couple little things in there and where I was like, oh, that's a little different than from the story from the game. Maybe I understand why they're doing it, or I guess they're trying something a little different. But again, it's just little minor nitpicks in what is otherwise almost a flawless show. Exactly. Yeah.
What did you like? I got the impression at one point with Tess that like they were almost insinuating that there was a relationship between Tess.
Yes,
and it's interesting.
Yeah, because I was watching, oddly enough, with my fiance, who not a gamer or anything. Like she has a Switch and plays Tetris. That's about it. She knows of The Last of Us. I tried showing her the remake. She watched the opening part of it when I got it a couple months ago. She was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I got to the part where I actually had to like be a gamer and go out and shoot people and stuff. She's like, all right, bye. And like had no interest in it, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, listen, you're going to love this show. I have a feeling you're going to like it. Let's watch it. And she saw Tess and she was like, oh, so that must be Joel's like romantic interest now. I'm like, I don't want to spoil it or anything for you, but no, I'm pretty sure that's just, they run guns together or something like that. And then all of a sudden, yeah, there was like the one scene where it looks like they were in bed together, or she came into the same bed where he was sleeping. And I was like, interesting. I guess they changed that slightly for the show, or maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Yeah, no, it's a small moment. Yeah.
The only problem I have with that, like, because it's also kind of insinuated in the game, like you don't quite know, like obviously Tess, it means something to Joel in the sense that he trusts her or respects her, but one of the aspects of Joel is that he is cut off emotionally, like he is emotionally distant, even to Tess. That like when Tess dies, I don't think he never really mourns her in the sense of like there's no mourning, but he's just like, I don't want to talk about it because he's emotionally distant and disconnected from everything. And so to have him kind of have a situation where Tess comes in and like spoons him or whatever, or shares a bed, like that's kind of like, oh, so Joel isn't completely emotionally distant and cold. And I mean, maybe it's a way that they have to convey it across like the time or whatever. I don't know. It's just, it's interesting how much softer and how much more open Joel is in this show versus he was in the game. Like, I don't know how that is. So.
Yeah, that's definitely something I noticed that I guess they're kind of trying to do on purpose. They probably feel like in a game people will stick with that kind of character longer. Maybe in a show they feel like if somebody is just fully closed off, people won't want to watch that person as much or something.
Mhm.
Sure, they've got some sort of stat written down somewhere, video game versus TV show, viewer preference or something.
Yeah.
Sure, it's only something that boils down just to that little bit. Or maybe they're trying to confuse us because we've played the game and they want to, like, hey, in case you played the game, this little piece, hey, look, there's something different. Is it though?
Yeah.
Just kidding. Who knows? And then keep going. I don't know.
Real quick, what do you think of the cast so far? Of the main characters we met?
So far, I think I love every cast choice. I can't think of anybody that I would change. I mean, Pedro Pascal as Joel, like I see him and I'm like, that's Joel. Like,
yeah,
the fact that he just looks like Joel. Like, I get it. It's not like there's a lot of makeup and everything required to be a very generic person in like an apocalypse kind of thing. Yeah, like it's easier to do, but like just the way he stands, the way he's dressed, the way his beard is, the way his face is, his demeanor, like all of it is just spot on Joel, and I'm very, very, very pleased with it. He's easily my favorite cast choice.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good choice with Tess. I like the fact that she's not some like gorgeous, like she looks like she's been through some stuff.
Yeah,
and that's I'm sure it's like a lot of makeup and stuff. I don't really know who plays her, and I'm sure she's fine looking or whatever. But like in the show, like she looks like she is what I would imagine someone would look like in that scenario. But I think Bella Ramsey just steals the show as Ellie. Like,
oh yeah, she's
so
fantastic. Good. And I remember online seeing people complaining about the cast choice and everything for her. Like, she's perfect. She's literally perfect for the role. I can't think of anybody else that could replace her.
Yeah, like I couldn't imagine what the difficulty would be to find someone who can play a 14-year-old girl. Like, so you need a child actor or childish actor who actually has acting chops to carry a show. And like, she does awesome. And she's got that, like, I just love like her like fuck you attitude to everybody. It's so fun. Like, I hope that she lightens up a little bit, because I feel like she was a little too aggressive compared to like an Ellie like from the game. I think Ellie was a little bit more, for lack of a better way, like spunky, or a little bit more like upbeat. Like, she had that like fuck you attitude, but it wasn't like she was like a lighthearted person with a bit of an attitude, whereas I feel like Bella is a bit more aggressive.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I do feel they gave her that. Maybe she'll start to soften up as the show goes, kind of like what Joel was like in the game. Maybe that'll be a little bit more her too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's definitely tougher. But yeah, she is phenomenal. Phenomenal. And I love that the two of them were in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But never, I guess, at the same time. Like, Bella was later on in the seasons and Pedro was obviously earlier in the seasons. But they're both Game of Thrones veterans. Again on HBO, doing a phenomenal show, and it's like they both deserve it. They're both phenomenal in both shows, so it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what next week's episode is. What do you think next week? What do you think we see in next week's episode? Where do you think they go from the story?
I feel like next week's episode is going to be all the traversal in the buildings and everything, and they're going to get to that the Capitol building or whatever where they're supposed to take Ellie. I think that second episode will be them getting there, kind of near the end, and if Tess still dies and all this stuff from the game. But I think it'll be around there. Like, I think it'll be where Tess dies and they've realized the Fireflies aren't there, and the two of them need to go off, just the two of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And then the following week will probably be Bill, which I'm super excited to see Bill.
Yes. Yeah, because it's what's his name in real life? It's
Ron Swanson.
It's Ron Swanson, yeah. Like it's Nick Offerman.
Offerman.
Nick
Offerman. Nick Offerman, that's what it is.
There we go. Wow. Yeah, like he is a perfect choice for Bill. I'm pretty sure he's Bill, right? I don't think I haven't seen that it is, but I saw him and I was like, oh, there's Bill. Like, that's just...
He's definitely Bill.
Yeah, it's so spot on. Like, the casting for this, they, like, such a good job.
I can't wait to see like Bella Ramsey and Bill just go at it, because like in the game it's just so funny seeing those two talk, because like they're both of the same person. Like, yeah, it's like, don't touch my stuff. She's like, I don't want any of your stuff.
Yeah, it's like the same personality, just so many generations apart.
Yeah.
Like, it's oh, it's so good. And
Yeah, I think.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say also the actress who plays Marlene is the
Yeah.
same voice and motion capture actress as Marlene from the game.
Mhm.
And she is like, you can tell, like, obviously all her acting from the game has translated to the show just perfectly. Like, she's
Mhm.
obviously the same character. She already knows how to play the character, but like, she's also phenomenal. When she was shot and Joel was talking with Tess, and she's like, "Yeah, take your time, but like, just I'm
I'm
bleeding out
bleeding out.
here." Like, like such just good moments.
Did you find it
Such
weird that Marlene seemed to have known Joel? Like, I always knew that Joel probably knew Marlene because she's like a wanted fugitive, but like I thought it was weird that Marlene kind of knew who Joel was.
Yeah, it is because like I think in the game they didn't necessarily like they knew of each other a little bit, but it was more just because it's like, you know, Fireflies, you know, have their things, and Joel and Tess, I think in the game were like selling guns and that kind of stuff on the
Mhm.
side, so they kind of knew each other of each other kind of through that.
Mhm.
Whereas this one, they definitely seemed like closer, like they did
Yeah.
know each other briefly. But I think in the show it was because the Tommy thing, how Tommy had left to
Oh
join the
yeah,
Fireflies.
that's a
But I
good point.
guess they've made it where like Marlene,
It could have
Tommy,
been
and
both.
Joel all knew each other, and
Mhm.
then Joel obviously is pissed at Marlene because of the whole Firefly thing. I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's weird because like it's never fleshed out how Tommy got like stuck with the Fireflies and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's a good show. I'm super excited. Apparently, it's doing well. Like I read on Reddit today that apparently it's the second highest debut on HBO since 2010,
Yes.
beaten only by House of Dragons.
Yeah, and it just became, I think it was earlier today, the highest rated television show on IMDb ever.
Wow.
It has the highest rating, which is, I mean, it's early and that number
Yeah.
could go down,
Game of
but
Thrones also had a strong start at the beginning, and we saw how that
I
went.
don't think
I don't think
Last of
that's
Us is
gonna.
going to go that many seasons, though.
You didn't watch it. You don't get to say. Quiet down, Adam. Yeah.
Nope.
No, I think you're right, Adam. Like I think this is at most 2 seasons and done. So
yeah, and I think that's smart because then that is a lot less. They're keeping with source material. It seems like they're staying close enough that they won't just be like, "Oh, the author of the story stopped making a book. That's fine. We'll just make our own last season. It'll go great."
we'll rush it too. We got Star Wars waiting for
Yeah,
us.
we'll rush it too because, like, let's face it, the books are very small.
Pacing
Uh,
was not an important aspect of this show.
no. Have you? There was something I wanted to ask you. Have you heard? Have you read any fan theories or anything like that from
No,
anything? Oh,
no.
because I read one and I thought it was super interesting. It was about the actual origin of how the fungus actually started to spread with people. Can anyone still hear me or no?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we're still good. I think the internet just decided to take a bit of a conk out on us there, but I think we're all alive. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
A little bit at the
It definitely.
beginning where they're
Oh,
talking
there we
about
go.
global warming. That global warming, can kind of
Yes.
cause that, which I thought was a really interesting way of starting. But like, so what was the fan theory of how the cordyceps virus started?
So it wasn't necessarily like how it started, but like how on that day it started to actually spread with people, just because, one day everything seems fine, and within a day people are infected and starting to obviously, tentacle mouth each other or whatever, like all that weird stuff.
Hmm.
And the fan theory was that it's a flower, like contaminated flour.
Mm.
And I thought, like, okay, who's coming up with this stupid idea? Like, what thing? But then I went back and looked at all the facts. Joel was supposed to have pancakes for his morning breakfast for his birthday. They were out, so she had to make eggs. The neighbor was eating the biscuits. The old lady was eating like
Mm.
biscuits being put in her mouth while she was on the front lawn. They didn't have any. Then Sarah goes over to the neighbors. They make cookies. She's going to take some, decides not to because there's raisins in it, so leaves. And there was another point where they were something about on the radio. They mentioned actually no, I think that was a little far fetched. It was like they mention a city where the infection is being hit really hard, and apparently it's like the number one mill for flour or something is in that city. Like that's obviously a bit of a stretch, but it kept going back. Oh, Joel was supposed to bring home his birthday cake. He
Mhm.
forgot. So it's like, oh, and Joel is on the Atkins diet, which was also a great throwback to like 2003. So again, he's not eating any carbs or anything with flour. it seems so far-fetched, but then it's like, wait a minute. Why do they keep mentioning all these? Like, my mind starts going like tinfoil hat. Like, why are they mentioning so many products that contain flour? That's so interesting. But
Yeah,
it would
I'm
make
sure,
sense, right?
sure it's not a thing, but I think that's a cool fan theory.
Yeah.
I loved how intense that first like bit with Sarah was. That was wicked.
Yeah, like during the day, or you mean at night?
Slightly off, but it seems normal. Like hearing all the fire trucks and all that kind of stuff. Like it's just so cool how like they did it, and it was intense. Like I was watching, she's like, I don't think I can handle this intensity, and I'm like, this intense the entire show. But it was really cool watching like the downfall.
Yeah, the downfall they did really well.
Hmm.
My favorite part, which was also the part I actually was creeped out real hard, is where Sarah was looking at the DVDs and you saw the old lady in the wheelchair
Yeah,
behind her, and you just saw whatever it was. Like clearly the fungus had just started to take her brain and
Mhm.
her mouth went open, but she's like blurred out in the back so you can see it happening. But it's like, is she gonna just like stand up right now, or is something crazy gonna happen?
Mhm.
Or are we just going to see that yes, she's infected, but no one can tell because she's old and I think deaf and can't speak or whatever. Like
Yeah.
she's old lady in a wheelchair who's mute. But just like the way that lady like contorted back and her mouth was wide open, blurred out in the background, that freaked the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Because that's not from the game, and I was like, I don't know where they're gonna go with this one moment, and I'm really freaked out. Like, turn around. Something's happening.
I felt so bad for the dog. Ugh.
Oh
Tyler,
yeah.
whatever his name is. Yeah, I
Yeah.
felt so bad when like she's dragging him and he's like just whining. I'm like, oh my god, no.
No, don't he doesn't want to go back in. We don't know what
Oh,
happened to that dog, but
and the scene where that plane crashes in the oh, that was amazing.
that was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
The downfall of society so quickly
Yeah.
was amazing. There
I
yeah.
kind of laughed at one point where like, because I think you see on like the thing, it's like 2 a.m. or something like that, and they're driving through town, and all of a sudden a theater just erupts, and I'm like, who's at the theater at 2 in the morning? Like that
In
was
that
the
town
one
they
part
still
where
do midnight releases, okay? It was the new Marvel movie.
it's the Rocky Horror Picture Show midnight screening, but I was just like,
No,
so
it's the
like
next
it's 2 in
Batman
the
movie.
morning.
They made it 4.5 hours.
I was just laughing at the theater. It was just like,
Well,
yeah,
actually, it did take place in 2003, and all the rage back in 2003 was like Spider-Man 2's coming out. Let's go see the midnight release at theaters. I
yeah.
don't know, maybe.
I
But
don't know.
yeah,
I
that's
just
pretty
thought,
ridiculous. It
yeah,
was so busy for 2 a.m. in
yeah,
this
Yeah,
small
there would have been a
town.
lot of advertisements and trailers before that movie.
yeah.
Like, wow, that
But
was later than normal.
it's a scene from the show, so I get it, whatever. But it was just kind of like hilarious of just
Yeah.
yeah.
The one
Adam,
thing I did.
oh,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, please go ahead. I was wrapping it up.
Oh, I was just gonna say one other thing though that they did change that I did miss in the game when Sarah's in her living room and her neighbor bursts through the door as an
Mhm.
infected person in her own home,
Yeah.
and then Joel had no choice but to shoot him.
Mhm.
I had always loved that scene, and
Yeah.
it's kind of sad that that was taken out. But I
Mhm.
understand with what they went with the neighbor, and there's no way to do both. That would have been ridiculous if it's she went to her neighbors and then came back home and everything was fine, and then somebody burst through the door.
Yeah.
There's no way to do both.
Yeah. Adam, all of our talking about this, does that make you want to watch The Last of Us now?
I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
I hate you so much. so much. Hopefully
Oh.
one day you'll watch this or Breaking Bad, because those are both great shows. But
Nope.
speaking of topics, you need to watch Last of Us. It is fantastically done.
It is so good. It
So
is phenomenal.
I think
I'm
this is going to
good.
be the gold standard of what video game adaptations are going to be, and I think we're going to see more of them after this.
Yes, for sure. And and I mean HBO, like kudos to them because they've been doing this a really long time. Like they back when people had cable, they were the home box office. It was like movies, like TV shows that were movie quality, and they've kept it up. And like I can't imagine Netflix would have not been able to do this. They would have killed it. It would have been
Netflix would not
horrible.
have done it. No, they would have
No.
done a terrible job.
No, they would
You
have
can
done a terrible
absolutely
job.
guarantee that there's going to be more of this now because much like Ubisoft and any other company in the game industry, they got the second best opening. You know that every freaking studio under the sun is now calling every fucking service out there and be like, hey, can we do a show? Can we do a show? What do you want you guys to do? We'll pick one. Just pick one. They're all going to do it now.
Yeah, and there's already a bunch coming, right? There's like God of War's picked up by Amazon, and then Horizon's picked up by Netflix. I can't remember what other. There's other ones. I know that. There's the Gran Turismo movie. I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff getting picked up.
Just keep waiting for it. You're going to get a Days Gone series soon.
Yeah.
I could see them doing that one because it would be easier to do.
I think of Metal Gear. I think Metal Gear would like doing like Metal Gear 1 as like a one and done kind of series. I think would be really good.
Yeah.
Look, just like Mortal Kombat in the 90s, when the first one did decently, everybody's going to see that and see the dollar signs and go, all right, so what you're saying is every game under the sun needs at least 5 shows. Okay, got it.
I definitely wouldn't recommend doing Metal Gear Solid 4 as just a standalone. That would not work.
Just take the cutscenes, upload them onto HBO. Actually, not HBO. Upload them to Netflix.
It's already been done on YouTube. We don't need HBO for that.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think that's a good place to stop. Thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for sticking with us as well. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want to hear more, we have a bunch of episodes. You can find them either wherever you get your podcast by searching for PixelPlay Podcast, or on YouTube if you want to see our lovely faces as we do this. Just search for PixelPlay Podcast. We have a whole bunch of socials as well. If you want to be part of the show, email questions, email comments. We have a Discord if you want to join other lovely fans like yourself. All that can be found in our link tree. So link tr.ee/PixelPlay Podcast. You can find us there, and we'd love to chat with you. I've been your host, Kaylan, aka Catastrophe, as always with Adam, CS Radical, and Chris, Jin, and Chris. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.